Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Laura Binks, Mayor of Strathbogie Shire Council. I would like to welcome you to this extraordinary council meeting of Tuesday, 6th of June 2023. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the places we live, work and play. We recognise and respect the enduring relationship they have with their lands and waters, and we pay respects to elders past and present. Today we're meeting on the lands of the Tangarang people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, whose sovereignty here has never been ceded. This public meeting is being streamed live via our website and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given for the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes which are on the public record. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9(2) of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are numbered 1 to 9 on pages 2 of the agenda. We welcome people to our public gallery and also those viewing this meeting through our live stream via our website. This meeting is being held in accordance with Strathbogie Shire's governance rules. If we have technical difficulties during today's meeting, which means we are unable to stream the proceedings to the public, we will continue with the meeting given that the public gallery is open. Voting by councillors at tonight's meeting will be held by a show of hands. If a councillor or officer has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure that they have done so. The person will then be contacted to rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and the vote concluded. There are also 5 people who wish to make a verbal presentation to councillors of their written submissions to the draft budget at item 7.4.1. I will call on the submitters to make their presentations following the introduction of the report. CEO Solomon, do we have any apologies for this evening's meeting?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Yes, we have an apology from Councillor Dave Andrews, and I'd also like to point out that whilst Councillor Reg Dickinson is not in the room, he is attending virtually online this evening.
Thank you, CEO Solomon. Councillors and officers, are there any disclosures of conflicts of interest to be made under Rule 94 of the Governance Rules and Division 2 of the Local Government Act? Councillor Hourigan.
Thank you, Mayor Binks. I'd like to declare a partial conflict of interest in item 7.4.1 with the hearing of submissions to the draft budget, and that is because there is someone in attendance from the Memorial Football, and my company sponsors the football club. So if they are in attendance and they do come to make a submission, I will leave the room.
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Are there any other disclosures of conflicts of interest to note? No. Okay, we'll move on to the officers' report. So page 5 of the agenda, item 7.3.1, contract variation, contract number 21-22-23, Violet Town Landfill Rehabilitation, Director Adamak. May we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council is required by the Environmental Protection Authority, EPA, to complete capping works at the Violet Town Landfill. The competitive tender process for this contract was undertaken in 2022 and awarded to Apex Earthworks Proprietary Limited at the July 2022 council meeting for a total of $2,151,946.50, inclusive of GST. Works were originally scheduled to begin in October. However, the flood event was delayed the work until February 2023. Additional requirements imposed by the environmental auditor and the EPA have resulted in a cost increase of $477,000, $573.56, inclusive of GST. This will result in a total contract price of $2,677,277.42, inclusive of GST, should this variation be approved. Work will still be required to complete biofilter for the landfill gas system, and the work will now be moving into winter, and as wet weather days have been used, there is a potential for further variation to this project. The landfill gas system variation was approved under delegation, but due to the total amount exceeding 10%, a report is now being presented to Council for the additional amount plus contingency. On page 6 is a summary of the additional works and the already approved under delegation summary. And there is a recommendation on page 5 for your consideration.
Thank you, Director Adamak. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer around this item? Councillor Horrigan.
Thank you. Through Mayor Binks. Thanks, Director Adamak. Just like to inquire, the recommendation before us has two amounts. One being accept the variation of $477,573.56, and the second one being the $2,677,277 to cover the additional works. However, on page 8 of our agenda tonight, in the financial viability considerations, there is two different figures. So the proposed variation in this is stipulated at $470,703. With the new contract sum of being $2,559,649. Can you please explain the difference?
Hopefully I can, through you, Mayor. The actual cost is on table 1. The financial viability consideration, that appears to be a typo.
Thank you, Director Adamak. We will correct the minutes when we add them up. Are there any further questions of clarification? Councillor Rayburn.
Just through you, Mayor, just clarification. Why do we need a gas system on the landfill, please?
Through you, Mayor. It's an EPA requirement. The gases, if we don't do it, the gases will build up, and it's just one of those things that we need to do. It was a part of our original plan to have it, except we've just brought it forward. That's all it is.
Is this going to be tapped to make electricity or anything like that, or is it going to be used for sustainable usages?
Through you, Mayor, no.
Did you have a question, Councillor Haysberg?
Thank you, Mayor. Director, so you're confident that this contractor can perform this additional task, I guess?
Yes, yes, definitely. Through you, Mayor. Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Director Adamak. Are there any further questions of clarification on this item, councillors? Sorry, Director Bray, would you like to add something?
Through you, Mayor, just picking up on the question from Councillor Horrigan, I'm thinking that the difference in the figures might be one includes GST and one excludes GST.
No, through you, Mayor. No, I just need that will be a typo there.
But then the amount that we're approving in the recommendation is that matches the amount on table 1, and that's the correct amount. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Director Adamak. Thank you, Director Bray. Any further questions of clarification? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I move the recommendation as listed on page 5 of the agenda, please?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rayburn. Thank you, Councillor Rayburn. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murray?
Only to say that it's unfortunate that costs keep increasing in this economic climate, but it's understandable, I think, looking at the broader picture of our economy and what's happening at the moment post-COVID. So I think we just need to get this job done and get it done as quickly and as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Rayburn, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Haysberg, thank you.
I know it seems like quite a large increase, but I think if we don't do this now and then leave it later, then obviously it's going to have a more serious impact on the landfill and potentially cause damage to the capping. So I think it's proactive to bring it forward now.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Sorry, just checking everyone. Okay, councillors, if no one else would like to speak to the motion, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands? All those in favour, please. And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Dickinson, can I just get you to show your hand in front of the camera when you vote, please? You just need to do it right in front of your face. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we're now moving to page 10 of the agenda. Item 7.3.2, tender for contract number 22-23-70, Belmadam Hill Mountain Bike Trail Consultancy. Director Tinke, may we have a summary of this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Following an application to the Victorian Government's Investment Fast Track Fund, Council was successful in receiving just over $240,000 to investigate scope, plan and cost and all abilities mountain bike facility on Belmadam Hill. A competitive tender process was undertaken to source a suitably qualified consultant to undertake this feasibility work. At the closing of the tender period, there were 3 tenders that were received. Following the assessment process, it is recommended that Council appoint Stantec Australia Priority Limited to undertake the delivery of contract 22-23-70. There is a recommendation on page 10 for Council's consideration. Thank you, Mayor Binks.
Thank you, Director Tinge. Councillors, are there any questions or clarification for the Director? Councillor Haysberg.
Mayor, thanks, Director. So could you just clarify for everyone the 2 stages that the consultant will be undertaking the project in? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haysberg, and through you, Mayor Binks. So essentially, as part of this project, it's really around undertaking that full scoping and feasibility work to really be able to inform a shovel-ready project for the construction of a mountain bike trail. The stages do include a whole range of feasibility work and then also some more detailed work to actually determine what it would actually cost to deliver such a track and what considerations also need to be taken on board to be able to achieve that. So essentially it's around about establishing a shovel-ready project that we can look to apply for external funding to deliver in the future.
Councillors, are there any further questions or clarification? Councillor Murray.
Director, this isn't probably the cheapest of the alternatives or the tenders that were listed under the page on the agenda on page 11. Can you explain why this might be the best tender, but it's not the cheapest of the tenders?
Thank you, Councillor Murray, and through you, Mayor Binks, without breaching any form of confidentiality as part of the tender process, Stantec Australia certainly provided a submission that was of high quality. They have a considerable number of years' experience in projects such as this, and certainly provided a rigorous application to support the needs that we needed as part of this process and project.
Thank you, Director Tinge. Are there any further questions of clarification of the Director for this item? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I please move the motion on page 10 of the agenda?
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Haysbert?
Yeah, I think the community should be really proud of this project because it came to us from the community, from a really passionate group of mountain bike riders, and where we took them seriously, and we're really excited to be actually do our very best to try and make this a reality. If we have a shovel ready project, we can then really be in the running to get some further funding to have this project actually come into fruition. So it's really exciting. We've got a steering group set up at the moment, and we'll be definitely using them to their expert advice on the site. And I know the consultants will be working closely with the community. I think that Stantec sound like a really well qualified group, and I mean, yeah, they weren't the cheapest group, but we really do need the experts. There's conservation management that needs to be taken into consideration, lease requirements with the various bodies, and it's quite a complex project, but I think the community should be really proud, and yeah, I'm proud as council to be hopefully delivering this project in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that this is the sort of an iconic project, really, for the community of Uriah. It's a well-known landmark just outside of the town. It will open up lots of opportunities for future growth and development and tourism in the area. It will be, I hope, with Stantec undertaking the work, it will be a great project to build on in terms of our tourism and development locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Hourigan?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Just to concur with both Councillor Haysbert and Deputy Murray, but I do also want to thank the Victoria State Government for their significant contribution. It is very much appreciated for a small shire like ours, and obviously thank you to ourselves for contributing that little bit. But definitely hope it gets back to them that this is, we're very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hourigan. Anyone else like to speak to the item? No? Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour, please? And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We move to page 16 of our agenda tonight. Hearing of submissions to the draft 2023-2024 Strathbogie Shire Council budget fees and charges. Director Bray, may we have a summary of the report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Councillors, on the 2nd of May, we had an extraordinary council meeting to look at the draft budget and fees and charges. And it was resolved to go out to the community for 28 days to seek public feedback about the budget and fees and charges. We actually developed a further consultation program building on what we did last year. So we had a 3-phase consultation program, which started quite a while ago with the Pitch My Project idea, where we asked the community for ideas around projects that could go into the draft budget for funding. And there was a shortlisting undertaken by council, and that was put out to the community for voting. And there were also voting stations around all the different townships, as well as online through our Shire Strathbogie portal. And then we also had 2 sessions with our community panel, 2 information sessions around the budget to discuss the budget, what the budget contained, and also get some feedback and ideas from the community panel. And I think there were around 15 to 20 people that attended through those sessions. We received 15 written submissions in response, and we also received quite a few engagement. I think it was over 300 votes in terms of the Pitch My project. There was quite a bit of engagement that were received through our website on that. And so tonight we're here to consider all of the written submissions that have been provided to you in the agenda, and also here to hear from, I think we've got 5 parties to talk about their submissions and just support their submissions verbally. So if we could just consider those those submissions, and then we might come back afterwards to talk about the recommendation.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, Chair.
Certainly, Director Bray. We'll do that. Maybe we'll go on to the submitters, and then we'll come back for any questions or clarification, and we can also ask officers perhaps for questions or clarification if they're needed during the submissions. So I will now call on the budget submitters to make their presentations. You each have 5 minutes to make your presentation, and a reminder will be given at the 4-minute mark. So when you come up, you just need to hit the button on your microphone and it'll light up. The first presenter is Gary Abley on behalf of the Southern Aurora Committee. Thank you, Gary.
Is that
perfect?
Yeah, so I'm Gary Abley, chairperson of the Southern Aurora Memorial Committee. The gardens have now been open 4.5 years. It's been probably 5.5 years since I stood here in front of council and gave them an idea of how we're going to turn a derelict paddock with oil drums and whatnot into something that we could recognise the volunteers and the hard work of the Volatown district community on that sad day, as well as pay respect to the 9 that were killed and the 117 that were injured. So we're very proud of the gardens thus far. Council did have $30,000 set aside in their budget the last 2 years, which sadly was taken, but understandably for flood recovery, which we fully understand. The gardens itself have brought in thousands of people over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been fantastic for the town. Myself owning the cafe in town can see that. I'm obviously a beneficiary of the gardens, as is the rest of the business groups in town. So it's been a very worthwhile project. Some of those visitors that we get there have included people who were on the train that day. We've had families from the deceased on that day. We've had emergency services, police officers, ambulance, you name it. It's just incredible the people are coming to town. It's just so worthwhile. I sort of see it, or my committee sees it as part 3 of the Shire's big 3, as in Black Caviar, the VCs, and then, of course, our gardens. The only difference at this stage is those 2 projects are finished and ours is still incomplete. So I'm here tonight to, and I could go on and on, and please ask questions if you want, but we see that if we could get, after talking to council officers, and that's something around the vicinity of $65,000, that we could then finally put a platform in front of the carriage, if anyone knows the garden itself, if you can visualise it. So a platform which we've downsized since first approaching council some time ago, when we tried to get the Mickey Mouse of platforms. Now we're thinking we might go back to the old style platforms that you see at all the train stations in our area, sort of thing. Obviously to regulation for disabled and whatnot, but also that money would enable us to complete the carriage, which we then turn into a museum. We have got hundreds of items from the crash site that day. We've been presented with things from people who are on the train, families. Just to give you an idea, I had the family of the conductor, not the conductor, because of course in those days it was first class, the butler. And the family turned up, and they were quite emotional about that day. I asked their story, and their dad helped till about 10 o'clock that night, and then walked through the paddocks to the old Hume Highway and thumbed himself back to Nuttawading and started work the next day. So, you know, they were amazed of what we've done to recognise those people. They presented us with menus and plates and cutlery and all that from the crash site. So the museum would be amazing. It would be open where people could up the ramp in through the museum, have a look, and then out through and see the garden. So I'm so proud of the committee. I'm so proud of the gardens. We just want to see it finished. I'm an old bugger as it is, but I'm the youngest on the committee. Some of these guys are 70 and 80, and they need to see it finished. So yeah, $65,000 we believe would finish it, and yeah, I'm hoping you guys can support it, and I really do thank you for your time, and I do want to thank council for their efforts so far over the last 4 or 5 years in actually starting the gardens and B, continuing to assist us throughout, and particularly if I'm allowed to recognise Bruce Rowley, who's been a stalwart. So thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
I hit the button now, do I?
You can leave it on. It won't, it's all right. But if there's any questions of clarification, councillors, that you'd like Gary to answer?
Gary, can I just clarify? So you've got the carriage, but you just need to restore the inside and do the platform, and that's what you've budgeted for.
So it's through council. Back at the time, V-Line offered us the council for $40,000 if we could purchase it, which we didn't. Council negotiated with the CEO of, I assume it's V-Line, and within a couple of weeks they came back to us and said, we'll give you the carriage and we'll bring it up. So we've got the carriage. We've actually done the flooring to the original how it is, and the round walls and everything like that. But now we need to secure the glass. We need to put security and all that sort of thing. Obviously some solar lighting and all that, and then we can just grab all this stuff out of our sheds and put in there. So it would be amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Murray.
Gary, have you had much support from other stakeholders like Vic Rail or Vic Track?
Yeah, they've been excellent. So we've had it really started from we got advice to how we should, because it's been a big thing. This is like a $300,000 or $400,000 garden now, potentially more. So initially we were told to get the backing of the community and the community groups. So our local action group threw up $20,000. So that's where we started. And then we came here with our cup in hand to council, who did that. Then they negotiated with the state government and they gave us 150. Vic Track have been superb. ARTC have donated as well. We got 27 interpretive boards in there. ARTC paid for all them. So we've been very fortunate, but we've worked really hard and we're fairly persistent. And we got good advice along the way, and we just sort of kept at it. The only people that haven't dug in is the feds. So, but even still, it's been, great. And we got the sign off from, who was the late great speaker there? The train buff man, leader of the Nationals for a long time. Tim opened it, and that was his last official event. So there's significance there too. So, yep.
Thank you, Gary. Tim Fisher, Tim Fisher, yes. Yeah. Are there any further questions of clarification for Gary this evening? No? Okay, thanks, Gary, for your submission, both written and verbal, and we will make that part of our considerations now. We've got all the feedback from the draft budget. Thank you. All right. See ya. Okay, our second presenter is Helen Gwillim on behalf of Avenel Active Incorporated.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Helen. I'm the Secretary of Avenel Active, the community action group for Avenel. Our submission seeks inclusion of the Avenel car park study in Council's 2023-24 budget. This project was successful. It was submitted by my colleague John Hyland, who's behind me, in the 2022 Pitch My Project process, and was allocated $55,000 in the current year budget. The proposal was for scoping and planning of a landscaped car park and footpaths on land next to Avenel Railway Station, bounded by the railway line, Sale Yard Road and Bank Street. Part of the land is owned by VicTrack and part by council. The proposal was for a planning and scoping study. It wasn't for the actual capital works. This land is at the heart of Avenel Town Centre. It's between Avenel's two main business precincts, the one at the top of Queen Street and the other along Bank Street. And these two precincts are separated by the railway line. This piece of land is between them, adjacent to the railway station. It's a critical piece of land. There are multiple community safety, amenity and access issues associated with this site at the moment. It is mainly loose gravel and currently water-filled potholes. It provides informal parking close to the railway station and also to businesses mainly on Bank Street, but also on Queen Street. The only other parking close to the pharmacy, the medical practice and the post office at the top of Queen Street is on the street, which is the main thoroughfare through Avenel and has a lot of heavy traffic still. There is no designated disabled parking anywhere near the Queen Street retail precinct or on the Bank Street that is off-road, and there is really none at all, in fact. And the Bank Street hospitality venues attract a high number of visitors on weekends and public holidays. They're a significant economic and tourism asset for the town, but this land that they use for parking is essentially an eyesore and unsafe for visitors as well. And probably most urgently, there is no safe level pedestrian footpath between the railway station and the pedestrian crossing and the Bank Street hospitality precinct and residential suburbs which are growing up there. Avenel is experiencing an unprecedented increase in subdivision and building approvals, and there is already baked in increase in use of this area for pedestrians and vehicles from approved development. Our expectation last year was that Avenel Active would have the opportunity to contribute to the car park study and to deliver a scoped plan and design document which could be used for broader consultation with the community and with state agencies to attract support and funding if necessary. We only received one update on the project in December 22 when we were advised Council had requested a lease of land from Victrac. We welcomed that action, but we were not particularly clear even then about how the proposed project was progressing and our role in it as essentially project proponents. Then on 11th of May, we received Council's letter advising the cancellation of the project due to redirection of funds for flood recovery. And of course, we all understand that flood recovery required diversion of funds. But we submit that the failure to communicate with the Avenel community before this decision was made is not acceptable. Having made a successful Pitch My Project application last year, we only ever received one letter notifying success, one update about the Victrac application, and then a letter of cancellation, despite multiple requests for updates. And I think the thing that we find most difficult to understand is that we were consequently given no opportunity to resubmit this project to this current round of Pitch My Project because that had already closed by the time this advice came through. Council's letter did offer to continue to advocate for improved vehicle and pedestrian connectivity in this area. That is welcome, but we don't believe advocacy to government agencies for this project can be effective without a documented, scoped and planned study about the strategic land use and community safety issues at the site. Council officers may also advise the project can be addressed in future stages of the Avenel Streetscape Renewal Programme. We don't agree with this. We submitted our original proposal last year because we think the project is of a scale and complexity that sets it apart from other components of the Streetscape programme. And in any case, we are unclear. We have never seen any multi-year forward planning for Streetscape. We don't know whether it will have 2, 5 or 25 stages. So if this is folded into the Streetscape programme, our question will be in which year? Avenel Active is under no illusion that progressing a planning and scoping study, gaining the support of government agencies and obtaining funding to complete this project is a multi-year programme. We're realistic about that, but that's why we need it to keep moving. The land isn't going anywhere. It's going to be next to the railway station and slap bang in the middle of Avenel Town Centre for decades to come. The issues of access, safety, amenity and connectivity between our business precincts and the railway station and growing residential suburbs are not going away and will intensify. It is our view that this can't be kicked down the road to some future undefined stage of the Streetscape programme or a vague commitment to advocacy. We submit that Avenel car park study is critical for a functioning and safe town centre and should be included in the Council 2023-24 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Helen this evening? Councillor Murray?
So one of the interesting things about this particular area is that it's made up of a number of stakeholders that control portions of this particular site. Victrac being one, Vic Roads being the other, and the Shire being the third. There has been some confusion, I understand, Helen, which with regard to the actual site with the letter, to Victrac was talking about, and getting their support. Do you want to clarify that, what you understand about that particular aspect?
I might ask John for some further clarification, but my understanding is that when we've actually been following up with Victrac to see what was happening, and our contact in Victrac indicated a couple of weeks ago that they had been looking at the wrong site. and that they are still looking at this proposal and they're looking at it again to make sure they get the right site. Now, we passed on that information to the council officer. Obviously, it's not for our job to broker that at all, but I guess the main takeaway from that for us is that VicTrack is still looking at this. I mean, my own view is whether VicTrack accepts the application for lease or not. As I said, the land's not going anywhere. It's not going to magically not be an issue in the middle of Avenel, and we need to keep working on this because it's unsafe and it's unsightly, but it's predominantly it's unsafe. It's almost impossible to get across. We've got an ageing community. We've got lots of young people with prams and pushchairs. It's just a mess. It's not safe.
And a subsequent question, if I can, Mayor, what proportion of this area is would you say is council controlled, and what proportion might be VicTrack controlled?
About 40-60, but I wouldn't swear to that.
Thanks, Helen. Are there any further questions of clarification? No, if not, thank you, Helen, for your submission through Avenel Active and the additional submissions from the Avenel community to the budget, draft budget process, and we will take in consideration your submission in the coming weeks as we look at all the submissions. And thank you for coming in tonight to present. The third presenter this evening is Peter Morley on behalf of Euroa Friendlies. No, not Peter Morley?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know that you're doing it?
No.
Oh. Well, somebody dubbed you in, Peter. There you go. And I can't tell you who because I've just been given your name on a piece of paper. So you're presenting, if you didn't know, on behalf of Euroa Friendlies Reserve Committee of Management. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks for the opportunity to yourself and to the councillors. I wasn't supposed to present. Sean Templeton, the president of the group, emailed me and said, "Oh, can you go to a meeting? You won't have to do anything. Just sit there and sit there. And if there's any questions, you may better answer them." Now, I've got to say something on behalf of the submission. I have read it because I was part of it, performing it. But I think everyone here knows what the Friendlies Oval was like and what it's like now. And it's been a lot of work by a lot of people gone into it, a lot of contributions of funds from council, from governments, from individuals, and there's been a lot of and groups, and there's been a lot of in-kind work that's gone in. We've got this particular facility now, which I think is fantastic for the entrance to Euroa. Not only that, it's starting to be used a lot more, but we've got a problem with the club rooms because it's not inclusive of all gender. So, for example, it's the showers, etc., in that club room for men only, and it's limited for female use, which is a problem. We've always known that. So, what's happened is that a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, there was some money that was allocated for a study of the master plan around the oval itself, not actually the oval. So that funds, and you're probably aware of that funds, has been used and it's been developed, and we've been in liaison with Craig White, particularly. He's a wonderful contributor, and he's been terrific for the committee in really working towards developing some plans. So the project really now is a Shire project, but apparently, as I understand, the committee have to put forward the submission, which we're doing now. A written submission. So we're putting the submission in on the basis that we hope that we can get some funds to do a costing to the plans that are already done. So everything's done. It's just a matter of getting the costing. And of course, it's then a matter of being shovel ready, as they say, if grants do become available down the track. So that's basically what the submission is. The pleasing thing that I really like about it is about that oval facility is when you see the tennis tournament on the long weekend and what that brings into the town for the economy. You know, you get 800 entries, thousands of dollars are floating all over the place. It's wonderful. It's like the show and shine, and and it's like the festival's going to be, and it's like all those things. You need something in the town. All of these particular projects are wonderful because people have put time and energy into them, and they all probably need their due consideration. All I'm saying is that we've got one small one over there, and if the council could see themselves allocating some funds for the costing, so we're ready to do the next stage, that'd be marvellous.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Peter. And if there are any questions for Peter of clarification around this one, councillors? No? I feel like we're pretty familiar with the Friendlies Oval project. It's certainly been one we've had a lot of contact with since coming to council. So thank you, Peter, for stepping up unannounced, unprepared.
Thanks for your time. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, our next presenter is Scott Embling. Scott here. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to our final presenter, and then if Scott does turn up, we can come back to Scott. So our final presenter is, who's putting their hand up? Neil Garrett does know that he's presenting. On behalf of the Violet Town Streetscape Group.
That's correct. I also, unprepared, with no notice, we were advised that we were invited to this meeting 4 days ago. So this is a unfortunate story about a footpath. I represent the Violet Town Streetscape Committee, and we've got myself, Pam Rayburn and Madonna Logue here as well. The matter that we're addressing tonight has its origins in the draft 22-23 budget, when an item was included in the budget to construct a concrete footpath along the south side of Cowslip Street from the railway line to High Street, or the old highway, in accordance with the adopted council's footpath strategy. This item description was modified by a specific resolution of council moved by a non-local councillor to construct a gravel footpath on both sides of Cowslip Street instead. This, in all respects, with all respect, is nonsense, if not stupid. I addressed the council on the issue at the time, and the Streetscape Committee lodged a written submission about the proposal, but because of time constraints, it was 2 days late. No change was made on the basis of the submission made by myself and the submission made by the Streetscape Committee, albeit 2 days late. And we waited. We were advised by officers that this matter would be reviewed when a detailed planning to implement the proposal was undertaken. So we waited again. It appeared that no review, as promised, was undertaken. We were then advised that the cost of a concrete path would be too expensive, even though a budget for a concrete path was provided for in the budget. And our last year's submission would be referred to this budget submission, and that's why we're here. The footpaths were then constructed in gravel. We again objected to what happened and were advised by the project manager that the south footpath crushed rock would be removed and a concrete footpath would be built in its place. And again, we waited. On the 2nd day of June, that's 4 days ago, we were advised that this meeting was on and were invited to attend the meeting. I don't know what submission is being dealt with because on the computers there is no attachments, and I haven't looked at the attachments in respect to this item on the council agenda. I assume there's not one because we're the 5th of 4.
There is one.
There is one. Well, I haven't seen it, so I don't know what I'm talking to. What we do have now is 2 gravel footpaths. The northern one has no real purpose. It doesn't have an entry or an exit or a destination. The southern one is not fit for purpose as a footpath on a road and cannot be used for wheelchairs due to obstructions such as sewer pits and telephone pits. I have a photograph of the part of the footpath constructed on the south side of the road.
which has been passed around by Madonna. You'll note there that it seems like an obstacle course, not a footpath, with a sewer pit some 4 inches above on a most unusual alignment, and as I say, has no real purpose as a footpath. It shows the standard of construction. So why are we here? It appears that our submission of June last year and one in December last year have now been considered by Council and no budget has been made to remedy this situation. I'm not sure of that because I haven't had enough time to look at that. Should we be requesting that the 2023-24 budget provide for funds for the removal of the inappropriate gravel footpath and it be replaced with a properly designed concrete footpath? I think we should be. So I will make my submission tonight that that happens, that additional funds be provided to replace the inappropriate footpath with a concrete footpath, which was recommended by the officers last year. So we've got a situation where we've got 2 footpaths. We've expended an enormous amount of money for footpaths unrequired. We've wasted the cost of the footpath, which is going to be reconstructed. We've wasted the cost of an unneeded footpath on the north side. We're left with a legacy of maintaining the unneeded footpath on the north side forever. We've experienced a loss of trust in the council in the eyes of the community. There's lessons to be learnt. One of the lessons is I think that the local council should fight for the town. Thank you.
Neil, your time's up if you want to be quick with the...
I will be quick. I think other people have had more than 5 minutes. Thank you.
No, Neil, if you're going to behave like that, I'll ask you to finish. Thank you. We had timing everyone.
The lesson should be that council should not change details of budget items, but instead deal with policies. If every footpath was to be gravel, it should be the policy of the council, not an ad hoc decision made during the consideration of the application. That this situation has arisen because of lack of communication by the council with the local community. So I'm making that submission on behalf of the Streetscape Committee. I'm prepared to answer any questions you want.
Thank you, Neil. Are there any questions or clarification for Neil from councillors? No? Okay.
Can I take it that my request, as I verbalised, will be the request made by our committee to the budget and be considered as such? Because I don't know what submission you're dealing with.
I'll let the director answer, but I do know that a submission was received by Heather Woodrow.
Yep.
That is quite extensive. And it is available. It's been available on our website since Friday 5 p.m. as part of the attachments to this to today's meeting.
Okay.
And we can forward that to you if you need the link.
I can look that up without any doubt.
Yeah, so it is in the public attachments. The submission from it's the first one, I think.
The submission doesn't ask for the replacement of the thing. The submission is really about the inappropriateness of a gravel footpath.
Thank you, Neil. We will look at that and get some further information and consider it as part of our budget deliberations. So Scott, I don't believe, has turned up in that time. Do you want to check he's not loitering? No, okay. Considering Scott is not present tonight, we won't be hearing from the Royal Memorial Committee of Management. So that concludes our spoken submissions to the budget for this evening. you are welcome to leave. Yes, of course. You can also stay. It's up to you. We've just got to finalise this item. So Director Bray, we'll go back and talk about, now that we've heard the submissions, we will talk about the rest of the recommendation for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Binks. Councillors, on page 16, there's a recommendation to note all of the written submissions. And obviously, we've just heard those submissions from the four submitters that turned up. And there's also another recommendation part to it that talks about formally considering all of the submissions and also any amendments that we have to make and small adjustments that have come to light since the draft budget was prepared at a special council meeting or extraordinary council meeting on the 27th of June. So that's on page 16 for your consideration. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Director Bray. Are there questions or clarification? Yes, Councillor Rayburn.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, Mayor. Director, with the 15 submissions, if we want to put them into the budget, do we then have to take something out of the budget to put these in, or can we get further clarification on that, if you mind?
Through you, Mayor, look, obviously we don't want to make material changes to the budget, because if you make a material change that has a significant impact, we would then have to re-advertise under the Local Government Act. I think there are always small adjustments to be made, and I know we've received some unexpected grant money since we prepared the draft budget and put it on exhibition, so there are small amendments to be made. And councillors, we're in your hands. You set the budget, but we just need to keep in mind those material change tests under the Local Government Act, so we don't have to re-advertise. So there is ability to make small adjustments. However, I would also say that obviously we can't make any major decisions because we've already advertised something, and we also have to be mindful of all of the indicators and the financial position that we have, particularly with the challenges around the flood recovery and those challenges. And we're still awaiting some of those final payment figures from the insurers. So we're still in a position where we don't have the complete information around that. So it's just considering all of those factors and having some more discussions and considering all of those submissions that we've received over the next couple of weeks before we adopt the formal budget on the 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bray. Councillor Murray, do you have a question or clarification?
Oh, just on that, I'm not quite sure what you meant by re-advertise, that phrase. Can you please explain that?
So through you, Chair, so if we make significant changes to the budget, so if there's something unexpected that is a significant change to the bottom line, then there are provisions on the Local Government Act where we have to consult on anything that makes substantial changes to a budget that's been advertised. So if you think about a mid-year review process as well, if we make some significant changes and have things that we haven't advertised to the community, if we've got additional borrowings, if there are changes to the rates and charges that have to be made, that then triggers a re-advertising process under the Local Government Act. So it's just, we can make, as I said, make minor changes that don't really change the bottom line significantly, but we just need to keep in mind any significant changes that might change those headline things under the Local Government Act that would then trigger an additional advertising process.
Yes, Councillor Murray.
Can I ask how are we to judge what is minor and what's significant in the light of what you're explaining there? I'm not quite sure where that leaves us in our deliberations to understand what a figure might be, or what a likely prospect might be in terms of the budget and what we can allocate. I am aware that there is some 5% or something that we have, or that some money, that 340 or something that we have in terms of unexpected income from grants, but I'm not quite sure how we are to consider these matters, understanding what you're talking about in terms of significant or minor alterations.
Through you, Chair. So the reason why we're having, we've heard these submissions on the 6th of December and why we're not going up to
6th of June.
6th of June, sorry, and why we're not going up to adopt the formal or the final budget until for another 3 weeks is to allow for those discussions to be had and those assessments to be made. And so it's not, there's not a magic figure. It's around things like, as I mentioned, if there's a change to rates and charges, if there's increased borrowings that haven't been in the advertised budget that are unexpected. So there are triggers around that. So it's not just a set figure. It's just around what is the intent and what have we advertised and what is the quantum of the change to what we've advertised. So it's something that we need to discuss over the next couple of weeks, which is why we have that time lag between tonight and the final adoption.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Brad. Are there any further questions of clarification? If not, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Haysbert.
Can I please move the recommendation on page 16?
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Haysbert?
Just to thank all the people who've put submissions in and I look forward to considering those with my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Haysbert. Councillor Murray, would you like to speak to the submission?
Yes, I'd like to say thank again those people who turned up tonight in the cold and wet and made the trip across into Euroa from far afield to make a submission on behalf of their community. We're very grateful for our volunteers and the efforts that they make in terms of improving the value of living in some of our communities. And we will take note of their comments tonight, and also like to thank those people who've made written submissions, of which there are quite a few more than we're here tonight, sort of applying for our consideration in various other matters as well. So thank you to all those people who have been involved, and I would like to second that recommendation that's listed on page 16 of our agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, councillors, I will put the motion to a vote. Can I see a show of hands? All those in favour, please. And against? And I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. So the next monthly meeting of Strathbogie Shire Council is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, the 20th of June 2023 at the Euroa Community Conference Centre, commencing at 6 p.m. An extraordinary meeting of Strathbogie Shire Council is also scheduled to be held on Tuesday, the 27th of June at 2023, Tuesday the June 2023, sorry, not at 8:23. That would be interesting. At the Euroa Community Conference Centre, commencing at 6 p.m. There being no further business, I declare that the meeting is closed at 6:59 p.m. Thank you, everybody, and good night.